Okay, good morning and welcome to the Adult Autism Brisbane Podcast. I'm Kez and we've got Kay here with us. And
Yeah, hey.
today we're going to talk about. Well, first we're going to introduce ourselves, set the scene a little bit. So, Kay, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I come from far north Queensland, just residing in Brisbane currently. My special interest is gardening, and I especially like walking and finding things outdoors and so forth. Especially in my area, it's one of the older suburbs, so I'll be able to find like random items from roughly like the 1920s all the way to 2025. 2025 stuff not really interesting, but it's still something I enjoy doing, and that's probably a short end of some of the things I like doing. Um, and I originally came here to study nursing, so that was also something.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm Kez. I come from a little town outside Toowoomba called Oakey, but before that, like, I'm a Defence Force brat, so we moved around a lot. And I guess I'm really quite interested in, like, my number one passion has always been being a Brisbane Lions fan and Aussie rules football. Um, but I do love writing and I love walking. I mean, walking and writing, you can't have one without the other as far as I'm concerned. Um, so, yeah, we're both very proud autistic people who just want to sort of give our support to the rest of the autistic community and do what we can to
Mm.
help. So, Kay, do you want to just tell us sort of how you came into, I guess, finding out that you're autistic and sort of what led you to getting diagnosed?
Yes, well, growing up, I was always classed as different as a kid. But it was more, I sort of went under the radar because I was still doing my schoolwork and I was still um hitting the usual milestones like academically, but not so much so what even though like I was showing signs of like poor social skills or like not hitting the milestones socially or for example like I didn't really I thought that years not years ago previously like when I was a kid like compared to my peers like this is very common with people on the spectrum as well having balance issues as a kid. So like I couldn't
Yep.
catch a ball even but I could like but I had the highest like mathematical ability in my class, or like I was top of reading, but then I ran like I didn't have legs. So it's just like it's very strange with that as well. But it's more regarded that I was just like a clumsy kid, or I was like ill if I was didn't
Yep.
pick up on things socially. I was just somehow I think that because the people I had in the remote towns as well, they weren't the greatest. They didn't know what to think because one minute they called me dumb because of my like moving around and the way I sort of acted. But next minute I would pass like the exam like test and exams and stuff, or be reading more or than anyone else or doing something that's considered like more smart than other children. They'll be like, oh, you think you're so special because of this, but next minute like so it was very conflicting with the information I got. Then when I got older, I still wasn't the greatest at fitting in with people, but um it's sort of just I just sort of went under the radar because again, I was still passing things on an academic level, but not on a social level, but they ignored that because whatever reason. And then when I was an adult, I started working in more task-driven positions, up in like the Bowen Basin and stuff like that, or and it again just wasn't really picked up on. And then when I come to Brisbane to study nursing, I was just doing some work and stuff, and I remember I was on placement and I was sitting in the staff room eating some toast on my break, and this nurse comes in and said, "Oh, you autistic?" And I was really offended. Actually, I was like, "How dare you?" But again, like she's been doing nursing for like 20 years and probably knows how to diagnose this better than some doctors now. And I went to a psychiatrist and I was eventually diagnosed with oh she was a bit weird. Like I sort of stopped seeing this person because she was outdated with her terminology. First, adult Asperger's syndrome, which is like way out of date. Like they stopped using Asperger's syndrome diagnosis like in
Yep.
2013. So so I was diagnosed that way, but as like autism. But previous, I even though I was ranting on that, previous before that though, there were instances like when I went to see psychologists, and psychologists in Australia can't actually give you official diagnosis, but they can screen you and speculate. So I did actually remember as well before coming to Brisbane, I saw a yeah, I saw two psychiatrists and they psychologists would say, and they sort of did these screens from the DMS, DSM, whatever the hell it is. And they took me through some like tests through their own side of things, and both of them concluded that I am likely on the autism spectrum, but could be diagnosed at the time. And I didn't really think about it again because again, I was just working and I was renting a place by myself and I was functioning like quite like regularly. So, and I didn't really have too many issues until I started going more towards studying towards nursing, and that's when and also being in Brisbane where there's more resources, was where I was able to actually see a psychologist. Oh, hold on, I'm mixing myself up. Psychiatrist, and then it escalated from there on. But and when that happened, it sort of yeah, I was just looking at perspective and like it made me look back on a lot of things through childhood and a lot of things that were missed. And I do wonder if I got the help when I was younger, like what difference it would make, but it's neither here or now, but it's just realizing things later on as well. So that's like towards the diagnosis for me anyway.
Yeah, that sounds very similar to my story. Because when I was like first started primary school, I was actually in a special class. So like, I'd be in the regular class, but then they'd take me out of the class like a couple of times a week or once a day to
Mm,
work on my like learning how to catch, learning how to tie my shoes, learning balance, all that kind of stuff. Early birds, it was called. I've actually got
mm.
my graduation certificate from early birds somewhere around.
Was
Um,
how big was your primary school though? Was it like how many? Do you know how many kids and stuff you had it?
I'm not sure because I went to a lot of primary schools when I was a kid.
Oh
So
yeah, I remember. Yeah, you did move around a lot. Um,
So yeah,
yeah.
um, they did actually say to my mum that I should be diagnosed, but there was another kid in my class who was more profoundly autistic, and my mum was like, "Nah, Kez is not autistic," and so I had a lot of problems, and I really struggled, like especially in high school. Um, like with
Mm,
bullying and social isolation and not being able to really connect to my peers. Um, I think
yeah.
part of that also could have been gender dysphoria because I'm non-binary, but
Okay.
and of course we all know the overlap between neurodivergence and gender issues, but we won't go into that today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a different topic for another time.
Yeah, but because especially towards the end of high school, my grades just plummeted off a cliff. I had no interest in school. I was verging on depression. It sort of like came to a head when I started working. So the
Mm.
first proper job I had was a convenience store. And yeah, the lady there, Flora, her name was, absolute angel Flora. I hope she's doing well wherever she is. But she asked me, "Oh, do you have Asperger's syndrome?" Because obviously it was back Asperger's syndrome back then. And I'm like,
Mm.
"What's that?" And she's like, "It's autism." And I'm like, "What's autism?" you know.
Mm.
Um, and then I lost that job because I was just having so many problems, like socially and connecting with my coworkers, and managing tasks and things like that. So when I went to my
Mm.
second job, yay for nepotism, because my mum got me that job. Um, what
Mm.
happened was my brother and this other boy, who was the boss's son, did summer work with us over their holidays. And the
Yeah.
boss's son is autistic, and that's when they're like, there was one instance where he and I were playing a game on his iPod in the lunchroom, and everyone was laughing at us for some strange reason. And it wasn't until later that they told us that we'd been having this conversation and we hadn't looked at each other once.
Mm.
And they were like, yeah, Kez, you know, you're having all these problems, and especially with like sensory problems as well and things like that. And so I
Yes.
went to a psychiatrist, and she's like, "Oh, sweetheart, you are definitely." And then she put me on to a psychologist. George, his name was. Um, I would love to get in contact with him again and just tell him what a profound difference he made to my life. Um,
Mm.
Because like even though I've left Toowoomba, I haven't seen him in years. Like his patience with me, his like just listening to me, um, the work he put in trying to teach me skills and strategies that I could use to make life a little less painful for me, which I
Yeah.
still use today. And I've even expanded upon with my current psychologist, Wayne, who is also amazing. Like, I'd really love to get
Shout
back on.
out.
Yeah. A good psychiatrist or psychologist or someone who really supports you makes so much difference.
I
Um,
can imagine that is true. And I was sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just gonna say that I'm like, it sounds like your psychiatrists were actually really great. My psychologist, I saw her off and on for about 2 or 3 years, not very consistently, like every once in a while. The reason we broke up is or split up, I stopped seeing her, was because she was honestly just a horrible psychiatrist. Like,
mm,
yes, she can diagnose you, but you can ask for like, but her pros were one, she would diagnose you. Two, you could probably ask for any drug. If meth was legal, she would give that to you if you asked for it. Like she would just give you, and then she'd just send you on your way. And she didn't like, and some of the medications she gave me, I'd ask like, oh, what's the best way to take this? She would just send me a leaflet on like safety. I know I study nursing, but you still need to know the information, like especially like when you're taking like she put me on like ADH or stimulants and anti-stimulant type of
ooh,
medication as well. And she didn't really, I was like, well, what's the best time to take this? And I'll send you some information on it. It was just leaflets about safety and not ODing, but it wasn't actually about taking it. So I
mm,
had to like research a lot of the information on best times, like and go on like forums to find the best times when to take certain things or do certain things because I didn't want to like because sometimes like for example stimulant medication, you take that it can mess with insomnia and other things. There's also like legalized speed. So
mm.
you got to be careful with that. Then there's anti-stimulants and they can actually make you sleepy during the day and stuff. You need to find the right time to take things. And but the other thing she did, I was paying about $250 or three or whatever about like near $300. No, it was more than that. Anyways, to see her for an hour, like not even an hour, because she'd turn up late and then only see me for about 15 minutes, send me on my way. And I sent her an email about it, and then she would only talk to me by phone calls. And you find with people like that, if they can't talk to you by email, they try and get rid of the paper trail, which I was
Yep.
trying to communicate with her on. And she said, well, clearly we don't have trust. And I said, yes, you display behavior that ruins the trust because turning up late constantly. And she was very critical of me. She's like, some of the stuff she said was actually like borderline bullying type of thing. And the other thing is she's a professional and she's also a professor of psychology back up north. So it's pretty wild. But that's why I'm not trying to invalidate or saying anything negative about your experience. I'm just glad that you actually were able to
Mm.
find psychiatrists that were nice because there are a whole lot of them that just I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
why they're even in the field. Like it's like I remember also I started wondering like when I was seeing her because she is older as well. I was wondering if she was developing dementia or something because
Mm.
I would go there and she's like, "Oh, are you still in this area up north?" And I'm like, "You're literally seeing me in Brisbane, and you've been here for like doing it for a year. Why would you think I'm still living there?" Like, and I was like, "Are you okay?" Like, and then
Seriously.
and
It reminds me of an
then
experience I
yeah,
had.
mm,
Because obviously, like, you had to go and get referrals so that you could get the Medicare
yeah,
rebate for your psychologist. Um,
mm,
and So I went to the doctor to go and get another referral, but then he ended up referring me to this psychiatrist who, within half an hour of meeting me, said, let's put you on sodium valproate, or valporate,
Mm.
however you pronounce it. Um, that's when I found out how sensitive I am to certain drugs, because that wiped out my entire emotions, all my imagination. I mean, don't get me wrong, I
Mm.
wasn't having sensory overloads, I wasn't having meltdowns anymore, yes, but I was not enjoying life because there
Yeah.
was no emotions there. And I
Yeah, so
had
that's
to,
why you went, yeah, it just
and
blocked everything.
yeah, because I mean, I'm one of these people who, come Christmas Eve, like, I am kid in a candy store. I am hyped. I love going and
Mm.
looking at Christmas lights. I love watching the Christmas carols. I love having a cob loaf for dinner on Christmas Eve, and
Good old
making
cob. Mm.
potato bake for the family, and making truffles, and like, this was the first time, like when I was on the sodium valproate, it was the first time I'd ever slept properly, like a full proper night's rest on Christmas Eve, because usually I am bouncing off the walls.
Mm.
And I mean, to be fair, I was in a bad relationship as well at the time, with people who were more concerned about optics rather than, you know, feelings. And so me being on these drugs was great for them because I was a normal person. And so,
Mm. I think it's more that you see more compliance because you're
yeah,
numbed out from everything.
exactly. So, um, it's definitely like trying to find a good someone to help you, whether it's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a counselor, therapist, whatever. Um,
Mm.
it's really important to find someone who A is competent, and B who really gels with you and who you can work with.
Yeah, it's
Um,
still like a type of relationship. Like that's the
yeah.
problem. It's hard finding a good one to connect with because you gotta see different ones, but you also have to pay money to. I know you get the rebate, but you still have to have the money up front to pay
Oh yeah.
for seeing thing, and then you got to bounce around because there are some shockers in. So, and I do go by theory. Like there used to be a joke that it's like no one tries to diagnose you more than a psychology student, and you will find that people who study psychology, sometimes they can do it for like obvious because they feel like helping people, or they want to use it in a technique in sales because they might like they're a little real estate agents and other
Mhm.
people who actually get into psychology. But you also will find people who have their own severe problems will get into psychology to try to understand themselves. Then they'll become like a
Yep.
psychologist or a counselor or something, and they don't actually, and they haven't resolved their own issues, and they'll just
Mm.
use their qualifications like yeah, well, I'll be a counselor, but I won't like it and I'll nitpick at people. Like I've even then I've seen some counselors. I remember going to this counselor and I was telling her about things, and she's like, "Oh, I watched this TV show where like it says that 70% of your memories aren't real," and I'm like, "Are you really a counselor? Like, did you break in here?" And then I just couldn't believe this stuff just coming out with because like I was talking to her and she was like this really flat effect um nonsense
Mm.
person, but somehow she also had to pay her for counseling. And it was just, I felt like I was actually going to be more qualified to counsel people than she was with some of the stuff she was saying.
Mm.
And that's why, like, sorry to keep going off topic, but that's when you talk about the problem with getting actually diagnosed, especially as an adult, is finding the right supports, right people, and so forth. But
Yeah.
in the actual like psychology counseling community themselves, you also got to watch out for who you're like seeing because some of them are just have their own things going on sometimes as well. Not all the time. I'm not saying it's 100%, but from my experience, I've met some interesting characters from. Oh, there's a cast being mine of mine, um, as well. And that's another thing I worry. That's why I'm glad that you were able to actually see
Mm.
two decent psychiatrists in your time as well. And if you're like with the current one you're seeing and so forth. But I'm going off topic now. Anyway, to
Yeah.
go back to what you were talking about, but that was my rant for a bit about that as well
Yeah.
by diagnosis and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess on the diagnosis topic, guess talking about what are some of the pros of getting diagnosed? What are some of the good things that have come out of being diagnosed?
in my case, it felt like a better understanding of self as well. So like, because growing up, I'm sure you experienced it, you're constantly wondering what's wrong with you, like why is this happening, like what did I like? I'm trying to do normal things or be a normal person, fit in like I'm meant to, but no matter what I do, it doesn't work. I mess up all the time. I can't connect normally. I feel like that outside looking in type of feeling.
Yep.
And you're wondering what's going on, and then with the diagnosis it doesn't really do anything else, like it doesn't really get, but in my case, for me, it doesn't really like, I didn't just suddenly improve in life and then I was like running marathons and like my life was a shining bright light. It just made me understand myself better, and like the things that were going on, like I have tried to fit in like I'm meant to and it was never working, and it helped me understand it's not my fault, and giving a little bit of self-compassion to myself, because I literally have like it basically is classed as a type of disability. Like it's something I
Mm.
was born with and something I can't control. And I do try to do what I'm meant to be doing, like socially and fitting in with people like meant to. But when things go wrong, I can understand that, yes, I know it's like we have to take accountability, but it's also I'm impacted, like I'm on hard mode because I have this disability I was born with that I can't really control. So when I grew up all those times wondering what was wrong with me, why wasn't I connecting, why was this happening, it gave me better understanding that yes, I have this problem and I am trying to navigate through it. And it helps me and it's just that helping me understand what was going on better as well, because like even though we go on about normal, like normal this, normal that, there is like a lot of people on the autism spectrum, they feel that feeling of disconnect from others, and you can sort of feel it when you after you meet people. And
Mm.
depend, like there are generally nice people who don't care, but you will find one or two people will literally target you because you don't act 100% normal, and
Yep.
you yeah.
Okay. Um, sorry about the hiccups there. We just had my internet just decided to die. But we were talking about the pros of getting diagnosed. Um, so I guess for me, I agree with um, understanding like, oh, this is why I am the way I am, kind of thing. This is and it
Mm,
helps. Then you can go to you know you support people and say, all right, this is what we're playing with now, rather than just like every time the bell rings at school, it hurts. Why does it hurt? Why? You know, um,
mm,
and it's like, oh, that explains so much, and you start wondering, why wasn't I diagnosed earlier? I could have. But, you can't go back in the past and change things, unfortunately.
yeah.
Um, so I guess we've looked at the positives of getting diagnosed. How about some of the negatives?
In my regards, so after I got diagnosed with having autism, especially while I was nursing, everything that I did wrong was no longer a fault of being a student. It was fault of having autism. Like, oh, you did that wrong because you're like, I felt it was used against me. That's why I don't
Mm.
actually mention it in job interviews or at work or anything. Since like I never mentioned previously because I wasn't diagnosed previously, but I definitely after after the stuff of nursing, when everything I did was suddenly put as, oh, well, that's because you have autism. This went wrong because you have autism. And they're like, it's just, they were just trying to, and I felt like it was used against me more than anything else. So yes, it's good to be able to reflect on the past and understand myself better. But unless I'm with people I can confidently confide in, I am not telling an employer or anyone else
Mm.
at a workplace that I'm diagnosed with autism after that stuff, because it was during things that it was so originally during the diagnosis I was still, like I said, like a student nurse. So I was talking to them about, said, look, because believe it or not, there are actually a lot of um well, you sort of know the doctors anyway, but there are also a lot of nurses on the spectrum. And it's just it wasn't really commonplace, especially when my coordinators were around or whatever. But it was just that's the only con I found. Like no one really, I don't really disclose it too much to people. And I also will note I don't have as intense sensory issues. What I have more is not I can't read people's expressions or tone of voice very well. More on my end, it's not so I don't so much have sensory issues in the first place, but the so like I guess the cons would be like again the social stuff, but also I found I don't disclose it with people unless I'm in one of those like unless I'm sure the place is actually inclusive in a way. I don't disclose it because yeah, the after that thing with nursing, I just found basically yeah, I felt like it was used against me. Like I was a student on placement. Obviously, I'm gonna make mistakes. But then the fact that it went from, oh, that's a student nurse making mistakes, it's like, actually, it's because she's autistic and everything she does is related to autism. That's why everything's going wrong. And I thoroughly did not like that. So that's the only con I can think of. But
Mm.
I think it's a little bit of a con to be like have it in the first place. But it's just the thing is, I found it's better just not to disclose with people because people can think you're a little bit strange, but when you
Mm.
say, "Oh, I have autism," they're like, "Oh, well, that explains everything." It's like, "Oh, you're a psychiatrist now, you're a doctor now, you know everything."
Yeah.
So I had comments like that before, and it's like I know it sounds like getting defensive stuff, but I just yeah, I don't feel comfortable thing. But I also feel a little bit like I've also met people who self-diagnose with autism and they make it their entire personality as well. And
Mm.
it's not that that's crazy issue, but I can't explain it right properly. It's like they'll do something wrong and you'd be like, hey, don't do that thing. And they're like, oh, you can't get mad at me because I'm on the spectrum or something. And that type of thing as well. And I sort of didn't want to be associated with that as well. I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
very common, but I have met people more my age or a little bit younger that will make autism their entire personality. They're no longer just a person with autism. Autism is the person. Like it's
Yeah.
just stuff like that too. So I always so my con was that more that not I didn't have really any more cons than usual. It's just I
Yeah.
don't disclose it ever again. That's a big thing for me, especially well,
Mm.
more in a professional setting and when meeting new people, I don't like disclosing it. So
Yeah.
that's the only con I have because I just feel like it's then used as like against you in a way, if that makes sense. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's my whole thing.
I'm sort of in a situation where in order to be able to function and do what I need to do, I have to disclose it because
Mm,
I just have so many, especially my sensory issues and
that's understandable.
also like the social issues as well, where if I don't disclose it, people have accused me of being rude or being lazy or what,
Mm.
because it's
I've been
just that
accused of that
obvious.
too, but I
Yeah,
just so the
yeah,
thing is, I don't maybe it's biased and bad of me, but
yeah.
I don't view coworkers very closely, so their
Mm.
opinion of me doesn't really matter until it starts impacting my work, and that's
Yeah,
why I
but
don't really care.
because
So yeah.
I'm in an IT help desk where I am constantly
Mm.
working with people. I'm constantly having to ask them questions and work with them, and so yeah, if something goes wrong, you know,
Yeah.
they have to know. But I guess some of the cons, like I'm pretty sure I have lost out on jobs because I disclose it. Because, like I said,
Yeah,
I've
that's
even got a manual. I come with a manual. I
I
come
read
with a
your
user
manual,
guide.
yes, yes.
Um, so I've lost out on. I'm pretty sure I've lost out on jobs because of that. I mean, they won't say it's because of that, but you
I
sort
know,
of
yeah, that
know.
it's that Inclusion Act of
Yeah,
whatever year, but yeah, that's also why I don't mention it.
yeah,
I just say like when they ask about, oh, do you have anything you want to disclose? I say, oh, sometimes I can
mm,
um be a bit aloof, like is that the right
yeah,
word or something or whatever I said
yeah.
or something
Aloof
about
or
or something aloof, yeah, that's the right word.
mm.
And some, but what's interesting, they can actually handle ADHD more than they can handle an
Yeah, but
autism
then
diagnosis.
ADHD is just seen like, oh, he's so cute and quirky. But autism seems to have a bit of a worse rep, which kind
Yeah.
of sucks. But so I guess wrapping up with everything, I guess if you are out there and you are strongly thinking that you are autistic or even any other sort of neurodivergence, you're thinking something's not right here. I need help. I need to figure this out. What I can recommend is just go to well. First off, document things. Start writing things down that you notice, because then that will help you too. When you go to a doctor or when you look online, because sometimes it is good to look online. You can. Okay, obviously you've got to be careful looking online, because you can end up diagnosing yourself with 3 types of cancer and you're going to die
Yeah.
next week. But
Yes.
there is also some really, really, as long as you take it with a grain of salt, there are some really, really good resources online. But yeah, if you just write things down, document things, because then it'll help you when you go looking. And try and it's really hard to find even GPs that are really
Yeah.
good at listening. But if you find, I mean, people
Well,
get
I know. Sorry, I was going
upset.
to say, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say really quickly about the diagnosis thing. So what I did find, because
Hmm.
as you mentioned, it's hard to get GPs to listen to you. Do your research yourself within a whatever professional within the region, and you can often call them up and say, "Do you have anything available?" And they'll tell you yes or no, because a lot of these psychiatrists, psychologists are backed out now.
Yep.
So you have to call up and be like, "Will you have any more availability for taking on new patients?" And then you go, and then when they say yes, then you go to the GP. And go that way, because I'm agreeing with like it. That's an easier method, because GPs
Yeah.
don't just have a psychiatrist or psychologist on hand all of the time. They just
Mm.
agree with whatever you ask them, basically, and they usually will just write you in a referral and do it that way. It's a
Yep.
thousand times easier to do it that way than expecting the GP to find you one, because they're
Yep.
like, yeah, I can give you a referral, but I don't personally know a psychiatrist to send you to,
Yeah.
type of thing.
That is really, really good advice there. Um, but yeah, do your research, and like that. There's a stigma around what they call doctor shopping. But
Mm,
honestly, if you're not getting answers, if you're not getting help, if things aren't improving, then you know what? Don't be afraid of doctor shopping. Because
yeah,
at the end of the day, if your quality of life is being impacted, then you've you need to do something. You know, don't try and struggle it out alone, because that way lies madness. Believe me. Um, you will burn
mm,
yourself out. You can do yourself physical harm. Stress can do you physical harm. So if you are
yes.
struggling, reach out. Definitely, that 100% reach out. Um, so yeah, this is just a quick first podcast. Just sort of going
Mm,
over, introducing ourselves, talking about our diagnosis journey, and just some. Hopefully, this has given you um, either some hope or some ideas, or helped point you in the right direction for getting some help. Maybe not, it might not even lead to a diagnosis, but some help. That's I think that's what we
and
should
perspective
focus on.
on
Yeah,
things, yeah.
yeah. Hope and
I will
perspective.
note.
Yep.
Well, Kez, or you're much better at talking online than I am, and hopefully, if we continue on in the future, I will get better instead of going my tangents and have a better give and take on the conversation sort of thing. That's not the cutting off. If I did that too much, that was not intentional. I do
All
apologize,
good,
but I
mate.
will note that you are much more used to talking on this type of stuff than I am. But if it does seem like something we want to do again in the future, hopefully I'll get better at it. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I
At what we're
mean,
doing.
we're
But
all
yeah.
learners in this great game of life. So we'll all learn, and these podcasts will get better as we, build rapport and get used to each other.
Mm.
So I hope you all enjoyed listening. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and love, you precious gemstones. Catch you later.